Sydney and I have been on our travel journey for 11 months now, and there are times when I just have to stop myself and realize, wow, you are in Tallinn, Estonia, or just, insert any name of a city that before this year I never would have imagined myself traveling to. It has been the experience of a lifetime, and I've gotten to know places that I otherwise probably wouldn't know that much about. Since today is our last day here in Tallinn, I'm just gonna walk around the city one more time and talk to you a little bit about our impressions of this place, our impressions of Estonia, and how it compared to what we expected, because I think it did end up being a lot different than we expected in so many good ways. I'm just gonna talk about the entire experience so you know, if you're traveling to Estonia, what to expect. Now the first couple observations are going to have to do with Tallinn specifically, not the entire country of Estonia. But when we first got here to Tallinn, we heard that there was an old city that we had to walk around, and we've seen a fair amount of old towns now. We've been to Poland, we've been to Croatia, we've been to a lot of places in the Balkans. So we thought for the most part, yeah, we kind of get it. There's going to be really beautiful architecture, obviously. There's going to be a wall around the city. There's going to be a lot of cool street lamps and just kind of the feel itself. But we had no idea that Tallinn might be one of the best preserved old cities in all of Europe. We were kind of thinking, oh yeah, here's gonna be another one of what we've already seen, when in fact we were walking into probably the best one we've seen. So you're talking about like expectations versus reality. That was something that really popped up for me. A long and thorough walk through the old city of Tallinn is an absolute must on any itinerary. If you're thinking about skipping it because you're worried about the crowds, the overpriced restaurants, just the idea of it being really touristy, don't miss out on it. Touristy or not, it is an absolutely amazing experience. The highlights of the Old Town include St. Olaf's Church, which is right behind me, a very historic place. The Town Hall Square, absolute must-see. The Alexander Nevsky Cathedral, one of the most unique things we've ever seen, especially in a setting like this. And just in general, all of the timber on the side of the buildings, the cool stone arches. You're definitely not going to run out of things to see here in the Old Town. So basically, I would say plan an entire day just walking around and seeing what you can find. Also, if you have enjoyed this video so far, likes and subscribers go a long way in helping us fund our adventures and continue putting out videos. It takes a second of your time, the buttons are right down there. We would really appreciate it if you get the chance. The next observation, which kind of just piggybacks right off of everything I was talking about the Old Town, is the city wall. Make sure you see as much as you can of the city wall. It is so cool. It's not completely surrounding the entire Old Town, but there are stretches where it's completely preserved in its original state, and it just looks entirely medieval. It looks like you're literally in a theme park or something. And it's amazing to think that this actually guarded the city centuries ago and it's still standing here. It definitely caught us by surprise because we've seen so many city walls at this point, and we were kind of thinking, okay, here we go, it's another city wall. But again, probably one of the more cool ones we've seen, and just the extensiveness of it, how much it's been preserved. It's definitely worth trying to find as many sections of the wall as you can. One specifically that I think is definitely worth it is if you're by the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral, you can walk around a section of the wall and look over the entire city, and then you can kind of see some of the skyscrapers and buildings in the distance too, which gets us to our next point. The next observation we made, and it's again kind of ironic after blabbing about how great the Old Town is, but we were surprised how much more there is to Tallinn than just the Old Town. This is a very modern city with a lot to see, and you can definitely tell they're going for quality of life as far as people who actually live here in Tallinn. There's a great tram system to get you around. There's a lot of job opportunities, particularly in the tech space. There's actually an entire section of the city that's known as the Creative City, and it's completely devoted to tech startups. And the entire thing just feels very edgy, very creative. And you can tell that that's an aspect of life here that they really cherish. The idea that people can come here for opportunity, especially in that space. Now, obviously, with a lot of good job opportunities here, especially within the tech sector, that does come with a little bit of an elevated cost of living. That's kind of just the unavoidable secondary effect of having that industry, is that more people are going to want to come here, which raises the cost of living as far as, rent, and then inevitably goes over to food costs as far as like restaurants, trendy new coffee shops, stuff like that. And so because of that, Estonia ends up being one of the more expensive Baltic states. And it is interesting too, because you hear so many people just kind of lump the Baltic states together, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, as though they're kind of just the same thing, just one region that's all very similar. But actually, Latvia and Lithuania are a lot more Slavic in background. Lithuania in particular, there's a lot of intertwining between Poland and Lithuania within history. So actually, Estonia is probably a little more similar to Finland as far as what it feels like, especially nowadays with the tech sector. Helsinki, Finland is a big tech hub as well. And that's just a quick ferry ride over the Gulf of Finland. to get to Helsinki. So with all of that said, I would definitely say when you're talking about expectations versus reality coming to Estonia, that's something that a lot of people overlook, is that it is going to be a little more expensive here than Latvia and Lithuania. And on top of that, the culture is going to feel a lot different. You have the medieval Old Town, of course, and you're going to find a lot of similarities to that with Riga, Vilnius, but as far as the actual city itself surrounding, it's very different here in Estonia than the other two, and because of that, it is a lot more expensive. I think it's one of those places where it just always ends up being a little more expensive than people think, because they think they're coming to a cheap country when in fact, it's probably more middle of the range when it comes to European countries. Now, as far as planning the perfect time to come to Estonia, you're probably not going to find a perfect time unless it's the summer. The summer is apparently very nice here. I've never been here in summer, so I can't vouch for that. But from what we've heard, they have very pleasant summers here. It's a great place to be in the summer. You can get out on the water, you can go for long walks around the city. We're here in mid-November, and that's probably one of the worst times to be here. I think the only worst time we could have picked was like January, February, but it's just really starting to get cold here. And that's limited what we've been able to do as far as, you know, walking around, taking it all in, because you only want to be outside for so long when it's this cold. But Sydney and I both come from cold places, so we're no stranger to it. We make do, and we probably lucked out with prices. It's probably a lot less expensive in off-peak tourist time. But definitely be aware of the weather. Estonia is very far north. It gets very cold starting in November, even sometimes October. As far as the language goes, nothing really surprised us there. They speak perfect English here. Everyone you run into is going to speak English. I would even go as far as saying you probably wouldn't need to speak Estonian even if you lived in Tallinn. If you spoke English, you could get by perfectly fine, depending on the job you have. But as far as day-to-day things, going to shops and everything, everyone speaks English. That's just the way it is in Europe. I mean, you got to think that like every single one of these countries has their own language. And when they go to another country, another European country, they're not going to speak their language there. So they kind of have to have like a common language among all of the European countries. And that's definitely English. It just makes sense as far as the convenience, the availability. So in modern day Europe, you could probably go anywhere and just speak English. We've definitely noticed that this year. You have to go probably as far as Turkey to find people that don't speak English at all. But Estonia is no exception there. They all speak English. It may be different in the other cities. Maybe it's more Estonian. There is some Russian here too, because it used to be part of the Soviet Union. It's right on the border with Russia. So people speak Russian here too. You'll probably see Russian on the menus too, along with English and Estonian. But yeah, from what I've heard, Estonian is a very hard language to learn. So no one's gonna expect you to learn it, and you can come here and just speak perfect English. And it's an amazing place. It's an amazing place when everyone's bilingual. It makes me really jealous. I'm still trying to work up my skills. I'm intermediate in Spanish, probably less than intermediate in German, but I'll get there. I'll get there one day, because if being in Europe for a year has taught me anything, it's definitely possible to be bilingual easily, maybe even trilingual. It's never too late, right? And the last thing I would say if you are coming here to Tallinn is just to take it all in. I mean, there's a lot to see. If you're here for one day, you're probably mainly going to be in the old city here. But if you're here for 2 days, which I think is probably preferable, you can schedule a second day just for everything around the old city. Now, I unfortunately can't really vouch for any of the water-related activities or any of the things that people get up to in the summer. But with that said, there's a lot to see here, there's a lot to do, and it's definitely worth the visit. We're very glad that we came here. It's just always cool to be able to hop to all these different places. All of them have their own language, their own flag, their own culture. And to be able to see all of that within, 3 to 4 hour drives, it is pretty cool. It's an amazing region. And here at the very tail end of 2022, probably most people are going to be watching this in 2023, this country that shares a border with Russia is completely normal. There's not anything out of the ordinary as far as things related to the war. And as crazy as it sounds, we've been 2.5 hours, a 2.5 hour drive from the Russian border, and we felt completely safe the whole time. We'll see how things develop in 2023. Obviously, this is a fastly developing situation, so I don't want to say anything specifically for right now that wouldn't carry over to the next few months. But right now, in November of 2022, Estonia is still a country that's absolutely worth visiting, and we're really glad we made the trip. We're gonna miss it. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to this country than just the capital city of Tallinn, and we've only been to Tallinn so far. So I don't want to speak to the rest of the country completely. I've heard that there's other cities that are very worth visiting as well, and there's a lot of beautiful nature. We're gonna be taking a bus down to Riga tomorrow, Riga, Latvia, and we're gonna be basically going through the entire country of Estonia on the way. So I'm excited to see more of the countryside, see the forest. There's a lot of forest in this country, and that, along with all of the coastline that it has, it's a truly beautiful place. It's a country that we came to basically on a whim, and we are really glad we did.